but your factories themselves should function as they were in update 4. So you should have no issues in that, in that regard. Hey everyone, my name is Jason. I'm a community manager at Coffee Stain Studios, and today we're going to be talking about last week's video. Last week's video was a teaser trailer of the new signals and train collisions that are coming to Satisfactory in Update 5. People were pretty excited about that. There was a specific moment in that trailer that got a lot of reactions from people. And if you haven't seen the trailer yet, it's going to be right here in the cards, okay? So definitely check out the trailer if you haven't seen it. It's like a minute or something. Definitely watch it before this video. This video is a monster of a video. You want the context, okay? So in today's video, we're going to be talking, basically about the signals, a bit about the collisions, how that works, how you repair your trains when they do collide, what kinds of signals do we have, how do they work, plus more things. There's more to do with the trains apart from the signals and the collisions. There's a little bit more that's been added as well, so we'll talk about that stuff too. So this is a mega trains video for y'all to get y'all ready for Update 5, okay? So let's get on with it. So today's video is going to be pretty information dense, actually, and these features that we're adding, like these signals, for example, they're like some of the more complicated features now in Satisfactory. So, I think it's going to be kind of natural for some people to feel a little bit overwhelmed by all this information, because I'm going to give you all the information in one go in one video, but when you play the game, you sort of work up your own understanding as you play it, and it's much easier to learn how these things work in game while playing than it is to just watch a video about things that you've never sort of interacted with before, okay? So if you feel a little overwhelmed by today's video, don't worry about it. Just relax, don't panic. Okay, when you get Update 5 and start playing the game, things will make a little bit more sense. You can refer back to this video at that time as well. And, you'll learn by doing. But if you do run into any issues when you have the update, when you're playing, on experimental or whatever, if you're having any issues, if you think that there needs to be more feedback or things aren't clear, absolutely give us that feedback on our QA site, questions.satisfactorygame.com. We absolutely need feedback on these signals and whether or not it's too confusing or what you guys need to make it easier to understand so that we can improve these, okay? So anyway, with all of that out of the way, all the disclaimer stuff, let's actually get on to the meat and potatoes of this video, okay? So buckle up, kids. Vamonos! So the first thing we're going to talk about in this video is going to be train collisions. Trains now collide in Satisfactory Update 5. They collide with each other. They don't collide with landscapes. So like if you're clipping through the ground and stuff, you can keep doing that. The collisions are specifically train-on-train collisions. And when they do collide, if you watch the teaser trailer from last week, they most certainly derail. Oh boy, do they derail. Now, when there is a collision, if there is a derailing somewhere on the map or something like that, players will be notified about the crash. There'll be a notification in the HUD, a sound will be made, and there'll be like a marker on your compass pointing you to where the train has derailed, so that it makes it easy for you to know when a train is derailed and how to find it out in the world. Now, of course, if the trains derail, you need to repair them somehow, and we've seen a lot of pretty interesting speculations of how this works, and people thinking like, oh, I'm going to be dropping all this stuff on the ground, maybe I need storage containers to put them in, rebuilding the trains, like what's going to happen with nuclear waste, is going to be waste everywhere, all these like interesting kind of ideas. So that was really cool to see. We love seeing this kind of speculation amongst the community. It's one of the reasons why we leave a week before we actually give information, and I don't know, I get the feeling that people like doing this stuff too. Like, I think you guys like getting engaged in that way too. It's really fun. I find it really fun. But I'm gonna burst the bubble. I'm gonna show you how the sausage is made. So re-railing your trains after they have derailed is actually quite simple. You simply just walk up to one of the carts that's derailed. It could be the locomotive. It could be one of the freight cargo carriage things or one of the containers, and when you go up to it, you'll have the option to press E to re-rail the car. You just press E on it and it immediately just pops back to where it had derailed before. So this makes the process incredibly easy. We don't really want this to be tedious because we don't really want to punish you too much for making a mistake with your signals. It's likely that when people are learning signals that there's going to be a lot of trial and error. We don't want to make repairing trains to be a real pain in the butt every time there's a crash, right? So it's actually really easy to do. But this does sort of beg the question, what happens if you have a train line over a ravine and everything falls off the train line and you can't get to the carts anymore? Well, we have a sort of backup plan. Now, we don't actually have, I can't show you this right now because it's not in the game yet, but we will have it for Update 5. There'll be a hologram there that you can interact with. And here's sort of like a mock-up mock-up of that. Yeah, this is not how it's actually going to look in the game. This is just an internal screenshot that we've shared around that Mark made for, you know, a concept of how this hologram could look. And yeah, so we do intend to have that in for update 5 before that comes out. And yeah, so you'll have basically 2 ways to repair your trains, either directly by interacting with one of the carts or by interacting with a hologram where the crash occurred. So that's train collisions. They're a thing, but you need some way to avoid them, right? So we've introduced signals to the game. Train signals are just sort of what they sound like. They're signals that you put by the train tracks, and they either allow or block trains from continuing on their path in an effort to reduce collisions or to eliminate all train collisions entirely. Now we have 2 kinds of signals in Satisfactory. We have block signals and path signals. Now I'll start with block signals. They're the easier one to understand, so let's just dive into block signals for a moment. Now in order to understand what a block signal is, you need to understand what a block is, for starters. When I was trying to understand this stuff, I was like, but what's a block? So like, what is a block, okay? A block is quite simple. It's just a segment of track, okay? So like, here's just a train line. It's just a single train line with no signals, and this entire track is then one block. It is one segment of track. It is one block. Now, block signals can divide up segments of a track or blocks of a track into multiple segments or multiple blocks, okay? So here's the same train line as before, but I've just put 2 block signals down in different spots, and now this train line that used to be 1 segment is now 3 segments, as you can see here. Okay, so that's what a block is, you know, in a nutshell, basically. Block signals will prevent a train from entering another block if there's another train occupying that block, any part of a train occupying that block. So a really kind of like easy to understand, really easy use case here would be train stations, essentially. So it's a really good idea to put like a block signal before and after a train station. So what that's essentially going to do is it's going to turn the train station into a block, right? So while a train is in there unloading and loading, no other train can enter that block. And so here's an example of that. So you can see that there's a block signal at the entrance and it's red while there's the train in the station. Once that train station kind of leaves, it goes green and the other train is allowed to enter the train station. So if there is any part of a train in a block, all the block signals leading into that block will be red and disallow entry to other trains. And when that block becomes empty, then the block signal leading into that block will turn green and entry to other trains will be allowed. So you might be wondering, what happens if you don't have block signals leading into a train station? Well, this happens, basically. So block signals are kind of the simple, basic train signal and should handle most cases. The other kind of signal we have in the game are path signals, and path signals are more complex, kind of smarter signals, and this is where the video gets confusing. Path signals are not really needed in the vast majority of the cases. As I said before, block signals take care of most cases, but if you have like bidirectional traffic on a single line, or if you have complex intersections or something like that, you'll likely need, or at least benefit from, path signals. So what do they do exactly? What do path signals do? Okay, so path signals reserve a path through a block. Now, okay, that's what they do in essence, but what does that actually mean? If we take this complicated intersection segment, you'll see that all the tracks are actually contained in one block. So all these signals that you see are actually just all block signals, and this big section in the middle is actually just one entire block. Therefore, if any train enters this block, no matter where it is in the block or where it's going, it will stop all trains from entering the entire block because the block is technically occupied, right? So you can see this train entering from the side is slowing down to a stop. It doesn't make a complete stop because, you know, the other train does exit the block quick enough, but you can see that the train was slowing down for the stop, and its block signal did not allow it to enter this block until the other train had left completely. Even though those 2 trains were never going to collide anyway. Can you sort of see the problem here? Path signals, however, will find a path through a block and reserve that specific path only. This means that other paths within the block are still free to be used by other trains, so long as their paths will not intersect with the reserved path. And the ultimate outcome here is what you see, that you can have multiple trains within the same block, so long as they're using different paths. So this example that I showed, you know, does work with block signals and path signals. It works better with path signals, but, you know, it still works with block signals. But there are situations as you build up your train network that you might find only path signals can solve certain logistic problems. And, you know, as you build up, you'll sort of start to learn these skills yourself, and then you can experiment with it and you'll find solutions in that way. So yeah, if this is confusing, don't worry about it. I figured this out, and if I figured it out, you can figure it out. I promise you. If I can do it, you can. So another property to path signals is that on top of reserving a path through a block, they also ensure that the exiting block is free, okay? So this will make sure that your train can take its path and also exit safely as well. Otherwise, you know, you might get into weird situations where, okay, the path was free, but there was a train waiting on the exit, and you get into a weird deadlock situation, or as I like to call them, epic train stare down contest. Too powerful. So one last little factoid about the path signals, one last property of them is that they can be chained, okay? So this is kind of an advanced thing. I'm not really going to go into what situations need chained path signals. It's more of just kind of like an advanced thing. I'm just putting it out here in this video so that you know that this is a thing that can be done with path signals. Eventually you might find the need to do this, and when you do, you know that you can. Okay, so that's enough about the two signals individually, but there's more stuff to talk about the signals just in general, okay? So the first thing I want to mention here is that signals are actually directional. So when you're placing a signal down, there's actually going to be like a little arrow on the railway there that sort of denotes the direction, right? And as a good rule of thumb, it's kind of just like the signal that you're reading on the train is on the right-hand side of the train track. But it is also quite normal to put two signals down in one spot if you're allowing traffic that can go in both directions. This is completely normal and it certainly is encouraged as well. But you know, if you're using like a loop track or something like that with trains going in one direction, you don't really need two signals in one spot anywhere ever. But it, you know, it also doesn't hurt to do that if you don't want, if you do it, it's fine. Another cool thing about signals is that they can have error messages. So there are certain situations where the signal will flash yellow, and when it does that, that means there is an error with the current setup, and you can just interact with the signal in that case, and it'll give you an error message and help you diagnose what the problem is there. I'm not going to go through all the error messages. You guys will no doubt run into them as you play, and hopefully they'll be descriptive enough to help you solve the issues that are on the track at the time. One last point about the signals that I kind of want to make is that the amount of feedback that we've put into the signals is somewhat kind of limited. We had other ideas of more things we can do to make the signals like maybe feel better or be a little easier to understand, but we actually didn't want to put a lot of time into it because we got to this weird point where we're like, yeah, these might help, but maybe they might not. Maybe we would be putting all this time into certain kinds of feedback that y'all just don't need. What we opted to do is to not do a bunch of extra feedback on the signals, and we're going to put them out as they are, and we want your feedback. So when you play with the signals, we would love your feedback. As I said before, questions.satisfactorygame.com. Leave any suggestions, feedback, any issues that you're running into, leave them there so that we can see that, and then from there we can start determining what kind of feedback we should actually add to the game, if any at all. Okay, so that's just kind of how we've been working with the feedback on this. We just felt like we needed a lot more data from you guys before we know what we're going to put in. Yeah, we just weren't sure what was needed, I guess. So yeah, please let us know. So one question that we've sort of seen pop up online about these signals is whether or not like intersecting tracks will work with the signals. Will the signals take those into consideration when it comes to like determining what trains are in a block, etc., and which lines are part of a block? So happy to announce that signals do in fact support intersecting train lines. So the logic behind this is simple. If two train lines are overlapping, if their collision boxes are overlapping at all, then they are then considered to be part of the same train network, and then the rest of the signal logic just applies from there. So this does also mean that like if two train lines are close together, but not like intersecting, but they're really close and their collisions are overlapping a little, they're going to be considered part of the same train network, okay? And so that means like the signals are going to treat them as a single block or however that logic is going to work. And this is still kind of a good thing because trains on two different train lines can still collide with each other. The train collisions are not train network specific or anything like that. So in those cases where you have train lines really close together where the trains might collide, it is actually a good idea for the train signals to consider those to be part of the same network anyway to avoid collisions. So, you know, just something to keep in mind. If you want train lines to be separate, make sure the train tracks do not collide. If you want them to be, even if they're parallel, if you want them to be considered part of the network, you can make them just touch. Okay, so onto some stuff that you guys haven't seen yet, stuff that wasn't in the teaser trailer yet. It's a bunch of new stuff now, okay? So I'm going to bang this one out real quick. So the Freight Station UI is getting a bit of love, bit of a facelift. It now resembles kind of like the new look and feel of the Truck Station UI. It now shows average number of items incoming and outgoing, for example. So another new piece of UI is actually a big change to the way that the timetable works and the way that it looks. So the new timetable, the train timetable, now actually includes like a map in the UI, and yeah, just the interface has changed quite a bit. The way that you set up your timetable has changed quite a bit as well. You can just drag and drop your stations where you want them to be, and you can reorganize them as well. And now there's actually a new UI, which is also a completely new feature, all right? So this is actually a pretty advanced feature as well when it comes to the trains, and this is like the stop settings feature, okay? So when you're in the timetable for a train station, you get this like little cog next to a train station. You can click on that and that will open up the stop settings. And this is the stop settings for that train at that particular station. What the stop settings are a series of conditions that you can apply for what a train should do when it stops at a specific station. Or you can set it so your train should now only load or unload specific resources, or do nothing at a station as well if you wanted. And I think this feature actually is pretty huge. I think a lot of people will immediately see a lot of benefits for this kind of functionality. And one thing to note here is that all of these settings are per train, per station, okay? So if you have multiple trains on a single network, they can do different things if that's what you want. So like, I feel like the specifying what resource you can load and unload is probably going to be the big kind of like, whoa, this is amazing thing here. But something to notice here, like one of the reasons this entire stop settings feature came into existence is that now that there are trains constantly stopping and starting because of signals, because of collision, congestion becomes a problem. And with these stop settings, it gives you the ability, if you're clever enough, to optimize or try to optimize away congestion in your network as well, by specifying how long trains should spend at train stations, etc., etc. Okay, so those are all the new things about trains coming. That's pretty much all the information, but there is one more piece of information. One more piece of information that we need to talk about. 2 weeks ago, Jace did a boo-boo. I said, remember 2 weeks ago when I said, play the video. All of your save files, essentially what this means is they should just work perfectly from update 4 into update 5. Work perfectly. Why did I say perfectly? Why? Saves should work perfectly. Why did I say that? I'm sorry. Okay, look, I'm sorry. I said the saves will work perfectly. They won't necessarily always, maybe. Let's talk about that. Let's just talk about it, okay? But I am sorry. Yeah, like when I was thinking of that, I was thinking of like, but factory, like when we were like rebalancing stuff, factories stop working and lines get clogged up. But yes, in this case, with the trains, for some people, your save may not work completely. It'll load, but your trains won't be working because they're going to derail, okay, for some people. So for the people out there who just use like one train, you're not going to be affected at all. If you are using multiple trains on a loop, then like with just signals before and after your train stations, like that's like all you're going to need to do to get your trains working again. That's very simple as well. But for the people out there who have like a single train line with multiple trains, bidirectional traffic, you're going to need to put in a little bit of work there. People with more complex train lines with complicated intersections, you may need to put in a little bit of work as well. We don't think it's going to be that much work, and like your save file isn't broken. It doesn't really break your saves. Everything's going to be fine, and I think in most cases people will be able to find solutions to get their trains up and running again reasonably quickly. So yeah, so your saves will still load. You just need to tend to just to your trains a little bit. One other question that people have asked is like, well, what happens if I load my save file and the trains are colliding? And the answer to that is actually a similar thing. Like when you re-rail your trains, sometimes they'll re-rail and be colliding because their last state was a collision state, right? But when you re-rail trains and they're colliding, they actually just won't have collision on them until you drive them. So the same kind of thing will either happen on load, where they won't have collision if they're colliding, or they'll derail, but then you can re-rail them again. They won't have collision, and then you can dismantle them and rebuild them to where you need them to go. So like if you have trains, colliding on load, that will be like just a minor headache, but you can solve it. It should be no problem. Okay, so that is all for today. What a marathon of a video, okay? If you made it this far, thank you very much. If you found the information interesting, leave a like. I hope you're excited about this. I hope this clears up a lot of like questions that you may have had. You know, if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments below, and definitely stop by our Twitch stream on Tuesday. Every Tuesday we stream twitch.tv/CoffeeStainStudiosDevs at 4 p.m. CEST. And what we plan to do is that if there are other questions that a lot of people have been asking, we'll talk about that on this stream coming up next week. So check us out there. But yeah, if you want to keep up to date with Update 5 information, do consider subscribing to this channel, because we've still got more videos to make leading up to the October 26th experimental release of Update 5. So definitely subscribe if you want more Satisfactory content from us. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you're having a lovely day. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you guys next time. Catch you later. Bye.